Really.
So welcome, Matt, to the show. I'm so excited to have you today. We're going to be having a really great conversation around sleep. Welcome.
It's great to be here. Sleep is one of my personal passions. I'm an absolute sleep diva, so excited to share what I've learned.
I'm a sleep diva too, so I'm glad that you're here. So first off, before we dive into the conversation, I want you to share a little bit more about you and your journey and like being part of BIOptimizers and like just what got you to this place where this was a big focus for you.
Yeah, I think the two biggest events that really put me on this path was first, my grandfather got hit by a car when he was 75, was a hit and run. And then he moved in with us. My father built an apartment for them to move in. And I just saw his health degrade. And the last 5 years of his life, he was literally praying for death. And that was really impactful. I was a teenager. So I really saw what happens to quality of life when people's health gets compromised. The second big one was helping my best friend lose 191 pounds in 18 months. It was around 19. And it was just seeing the entire transformation of not just his body, but literally going from a virgin to being married. And just seeing just a complete transformation in his psyche. And he's kept most of the weight off. And it's just been awesome. So that got me on the path. I got my bachelor's degree in kinesiology and a bachelor's degree in the science of physical activity. Was a personal trainer for about a decade, worked with some pro athletes and just really loved helping people. And then I met Wade along the journey. Wade Lightheart is my business partner. And Wade was really accomplishing some interesting things in bodybuilding. He was a natural bodybuilder competing as a vegetarian. I'm like, yeah, I think that's marketable. I think that's unique enough. So we launched some information around natural bodybuilding, and that led us to start building supplements. First formula was Magnesium, which is still our second best-selling product. It's a really strong proteolytic enzyme blend. And then around 2015, we just realized, bodybuilding is awesome. We're still fans of it, but our heart's really in biological optimization and helping people optimize all the functions in their body. Because I think people don't realize that there's levels to health. Like no matter how healthy you are, there's another level. And most people are probably in the 5-6 range, and they don't realize how good you can feel once you start getting to 8, 9, and beyond. So yeah, that's kind of Wade and I's obsession. And what we've done is build best-in-class formulas for different goals and different challenges. And yeah, sleep's been one of my major personal goals, and really proud of what we built around that.
Yeah, and the magnesium breakthrough for sleep is fantastic. I love it. So let's talk a bit about sleep. So many of my clients are sleep deprived. They're going to bed late. They're stimulated by screens, right? Like their nervous systems are overwhelmed. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but like we are so sleep deprived and we're not taught that sleep is important, right? Or maybe we are, but we don't take it seriously, right? And so much of society then is running off of caffeine and horrible energy drinks full of garbage and like not nourishing their bodies properly. And then they get upset when it's taking them 3 hours to fall asleep, or they're waking through the night and, waking feeling exhausted and brain fog. So why do you think still in today's day and age that this is like you put in, it is an epidemic, but it doesn't really seem like it's fully being like advertised to deal with, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what happens is people achieve homeostasis with whatever level of sleep that they're getting. So for an example, a lot of people will say, hey, Matt, I'm sleeping 6 hours and I feel pretty good. I love Matthew Walker's answer when Rogan asked him that question. He said, what percentage of people are getting 6 hours of sleep and not being impacted? He said 0%. So I think everybody, even though you can kind of get used to it, and what happens is when your body releases cortisol, you will feel good. And, we talk about that later, but when you get that second win later at night, because you stayed up too late, you actually feel pretty good. You can stay up another 2, 3, 4 hours. So a lot of people really get into a fight, flight, freeze state. Like you said, they're too deep in a sympathetic mode, and they adapt to that. But at the same time, their health's getting compromised. Here's some sobering stats on the impact of literally one night of bad sleep. First of all, your hippocampus, which stores your memories, gets severely compromised. So a lot of people say, well, my short-term memory is fading. I can't remember things. I don't know where my keys are. Most of the time, a lot of that is because they're not sleeping enough. So again, your sleep certainly impacts your hippocampus. The other big one is that it literally erodes your DNA. So in terms of, literally causing your body to age and get damaged, it will do that. And epigenetically, it will turn on a bunch of bad genes related to cancer and tumor formation that you certainly don't want to turn on if you don't have to. So there's a lot of severe short-term consequences to literally one night of bad sleep. But here's one stat that I think really shows the potential impact. When you look at daylight savings time versus, during the fall, there's a 45% difference in heart attacks between when people lose an hour of sleep versus when they gain an hour. So that's a pretty mind-blowing stat. Of course, all kinds of other scary stats, like 47% of people admit to falling asleep at the wheel in the past month. And, when I used to go to university, I used to drive 30 minutes back and forth between my parents' house and university. And I remember those micro naps, and then you wake up and, it's scary. And of course, it's very dangerous. So yeah,
Yes.
I spent 6 months in Japan and saw literally about 80% of anybody in a subway was sleeping standing up. I don't know how they do it, but
Wow.
they're sleeping standing up, and then somehow they know which station to wake up and walk out. But yeah, sleep deprivation is an epidemic.
It sure is. I know I have some clients and the jobs they work in, they're working like 180 hours a week, and their inflammation and C-reactive protein are through the roof. Their cortisol's through the roof. They're wondering why, they're having issues with like fertility and their cycles, and, their ghrelins through the roof, and they're wanting to like eat through everything, right? And that lack of sleep, 3 hours of sleep a night, 2 hours of sleep a night, to me, it's just inhumane to have to work that level of hours in the first place and be so disrupted from your sleep. But it has a significant impact. So the hippocampus thing totally makes sense, because you know what, when I have a couple poor nights sleep, I have brain fog right away, and my memory is not as sharp, right? And I feel my dopamine hasn't produced as much, and like when you become more in tune, you're like, wow, it really does have a significant impact. And so I think it's important for people to start understanding the things that are impacted, so that when they wake up, they just don't go into like an F it mentality. I'm tired, I'm going to eat whatever I want, I'm not going to care today. Like, and go, oh, this is why I'm feeling like this. What can I do to help take care of myself? So I'm curious, what do you think is an optimal amount of sleep now? And is it like really related to age, hormone imbalances, etc.? Like, tell me what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so there's definitely some variance there. Let's start on the upper end of the scale. So again, I worked with pro athletes, and one of my mentors, his formula was 8 hours plus 1 hour for every hour that you train. And if you look at Serena Williams, LeBron James, like they're all sleeping 10 hours. LeBron, actually, I read an article, he slept 12 hours one night. So these are people that obviously have a lot of physical workload, they're training hard, and they need extra levels of recovery. And even myself, like the days where I'm squatting or deadlifting, which is really stressful on the nervous system, I typically need about an extra hour. So I'd say on average, people need about 7 to 8 hours to be optimized. And if you look at the longevity data on sleep, what's interesting is that people that don't sleep enough, and like below 6.5 is the pretty much the line, or people that sleep too much die earlier. Now, I think it's very different mechanisms. I think people that sleep too much, the reason is they're not healthy. And that's
Right.
something I've noticed as well with myself and other people, that as they're improving their health, they actually might need a little bit less sleep. But we're not talking about getting below 6 hours. We're talking more, maybe they're sleeping 9 hours like I used to, and now I'm around 7.5, and I feel really good. Again, some nights I need 8. But I think that's the range. Now, some people seem to have genetics which allow them to go through the sleep cycles faster. And I think the main thing I want to talk about today is the game is not just sleep quantity, it's sleep quality. And I learned that the hard way. When I was in my 20s, I did this crazy sleep experiment, got down to 4 hours of sleep. My strategy was I'm going to cut sleep 15 minutes every few days and I'll adapt. I was thinking like my body would adapt like it does to exercise. Well, it doesn't. And I crashed and burned and needed like 2 months to recover from that. And then I started reading about sleep and getting educated and read you need like 8 to 9. So I started sleeping 9 hours. Fast forward a few years, I'm getting all these sleep trackers like the Zio and the Oura Ring and some other devices. And it was reporting I'm getting 0 to 15 minutes of deep sleep a night, which is really horrible. The optimal amount of deep sleep is around 90 minutes plus. 75 is good, but if you're getting 90 minutes plus of deep sleep, you will feel amazing the next day. And then REM 2+ hours is really a good number to shoot for. But I was getting 0 to 15 minutes. My testosterone crashed. It was in low 200s. My body fat on a DEXA scan was the highest reading I ever got. So that was the light bulb moment where I realized like the number one thing I can invest in and spend time and energy and money on is my sleep. So I spent about 45 grand on sleep devices and mattresses and Faraday cages and PEMF devices since that time. And it's been the best investment I've made in my health in the last decade. Like I would give up my car and pretty much every materialistic possession I have before my sleep setup. And, even when I travel, that's my biggest pain point is I just miss my optimized sleep environment. But yeah, I think that depends on the person. And the game is really sleep quality. And of course, all the things that we're going to get into, including sleep molecules, are the key strategies and things that people can do to get better sleep, not just more sleep.
So what are some of your suggestions for ways for us to track like how much, deep sleep, REM, all of this so that we can start gaining clarity?
Yeah, I think first of all, people should embrace feedback loops. I think that feedback loops are the most powerful tool to improve anything. And of course, all these biohacking tracking devices are great feedback loops. So one note is I think the Oura Ring is great. However, it's about 60% accurate for assessing the precise amount of deep and REM. However, if you combine the deep and REM together, that number is actually pretty accurate. The only way you can get accurate sleep data is to use an EEG, which monitors the electricity in your brain. So there was a company called Dream, DREEM, and their first version, they actually went direct to consumer, but now they've pivoted to research only. So as far as I'm aware of, there's no consumer device that is EEG. But if you go to a sleep lab, they'll put electrodes on your head and try to monitor your sleep. But the Oura Ring is good enough. And I really, really like the Oura Ring to measure your readiness score. I think that it is accurate to measure your heart rate variability and your heart rate and the body temp and all of those different parameters, because those are direct measurements. But the Oura Ring is good enough that if you're improving your sleep, you will see improvements in your data. So I think it's a very good tool for that.
Good. So people can kind of get these tools to get started with. And then like, as far as then, getting into a good sleep hygiene routine, because I feel like this is where so many fall short. Phones, screens, right? Eating too late, up late working, trouble falling asleep.
Yeah, no, those are all key things. So first of all, let's talk about an important concept, which is your target bedtime. So most people don't have a target bedtime. They just go to bed when the Netflix show is finished or when they're exhausted or when they pass out on the couch, whatever, right? So they don't really have a set time. And consistency of going to bed is a major improver of sleep. Like if you just go to bed at the same time, 80, 90% of the time, you're going to notice a big improvement. Why? Because you're programming that circadian clock. And let's rewind, let's start about 3 or 4 hours before. You really want to have your last meal at that time. Like one thing that's been consistent with me and anyone I've worked with or look at their sleep data, if they're eating a big meal under 3 hours before their bedtime, their deep sleep is going to be absolutely destroyed. And when your deep sleep is destroyed, again, you're not getting the benefit of all the anti-aging hormone production that your body will produce. The whole prolactin cycle that starts with melatonin, prolactin, growth hormone, et cetera, is essential for rejuvenation. So you just won't feel very good the next day. The second big one is light. And I actually want to start in the morning because light the best strategy, and again, credit to Dr. Andrew Huberman for really hammering the importance of this. But in a perfect world, you're waking up and you're blasting your eyes with blue light and sunlight within about 30 minutes. Now, for those of you like yourself that live in cold Canadian winters, and I am Canadian and I'm from there, the best strategy is to use blue light panels. I used to use these glasses, I still have them, called Retimer, which is from an Australian company. They literally just shine blue light in your eyes, and it does accomplish the same thing. So if you don't want to go outside at 7 a.m. because it's minus 30 Celsius, then these are good strategies. As long as you get a lot of blue light in your eyes, you will, again, basically tell your brain that that's the beginning of the day. And what's going to happen is about 14 to 16 hours later, you're going to feel tired, which is really important. Then about 90 minutes before your bedtime, it's time to start dimming the lights. And I'm going to share a few tactics, and again, pick the one that you want to do. So one is you could just turn off or dim the lights in your house. That's one strategy. Some people like red light bulbs. It's another strategy. You can just change the lights that you need on to red light bulbs, and that will help significantly. And some people like wearing blue light blocking glasses. So any one of those is a really good strategy. I heard another really good one the other day, which is salt lamps. So using salt lamps, which obviously really blocks the light with a dimmer, will allow you to kind of just create ambient lighting in your rooms and not impact your brain. Because what happens with light, if you get too much light, again, your brain doesn't think that it's nighttime. And what happens with light, it destroys melatonin. So if you have light that's just shining in your eyes, you will literally produce pretty much zero melatonin. And here's a pro tip for anybody that is going to take melatonin. And I'm not a big fan of that. We can get into that. But if you take melatonin and you're exposing your eyes to light, you're literally destroying melatonin in real time. So the best strategy, if you can take melatonin, is lights off, take your melatonin, and then you'll get a much better result out of it.
Yeah, the light makes a huge difference, 100%. And this is the thing, is we've not been taught about our circadian rhythm and what the body actually needs. And in the last 20, 30 years, we have been so inundated with more stimulation, more screens, more light than ever before. So I feel like it's so important we come back to basics and like build these sleep hygiene routines. So I'm curious with the melatonin, why are you not a fan of people taking it?
First of all, melatonin is a hormone.
Yes.
It's a scheduled drug in many countries, including Canada, I believe. So yeah, it's a big consideration. And here's the big one. People are essentially mega dosing. They're essentially overdosing on melatonin. The brain naturally produces about 10 to 80 micrograms. So when people are taking even half a milligram of melatonin, what happens is that's like 12 to 20 times the natural dose that the brain would naturally produce. The big issue I have with melatonin is some people, myself included, have a genetic variant that causes them to wake up after 5-6 hours because there's a spike in body temperature. And I've heard Tim Ferriss talk about this and Andrew Huberman. It's a pretty common consequence. Not everybody has that. The other thing with melatonin is it's very good at helping people fall asleep, but it doesn't really improve deep, nor does it improve REM. So again, I'm a fan of using it in a few situations. One, if you're traveling, like let's say 3 time zones, using it for a couple of nights is a good strategy. If you're staying up too late and your cortisol's kicked in and you just have a hard time shutting down your brain, I think that's a good use. Here's one of my favorite use cases. If I'm going to sleep, let's say 5 hours, like a few weeks ago, I was in New York. I went to see Dr. Andrew Huberman in New York, and I had to wake up after 4.5 hours to catch a flight. I will use a pretty good dose of melatonin, like about 150 micrograms, because I'm going to wake up after 5 hours and feel more refreshed. So I'm kind of using it as a hack to feel better the next day. But that's pretty much it. Again, I think that microdosing is the key. And we have another product coming out soon called BIOptimizer, which I'll make sure that you get some, which has about 18 micrograms per spray. And I'm finding personally that around 50 to 60 micrograms, I don't get that wake up effect and I get the benefits of it. So yeah, I think melatonin has to be, and microdose is not really the right term because it's, in my opinion, it's optimal dosing and
Right.
using it in the right circumstances.
Right. So is there anything, so say people make the changes with their sleep hygiene, they're dimming the lights, right? They're being mindful of how often they eat before bed. Say they're still having trouble falling asleep. Like, yes, I know there's a whole path they could go down with like getting hormones tested and like exploring other things, but is this where you say maybe trying something like the magnesium breakthrough or something else may assist in that falling asleep for a while for starters while they investigate other things? Or where would you say people should go at this point?
Yeah, so let's just cover a couple of really critical fundamentals and then we can get into sleep molecules because I think, again, out of all the things I've invested in, I can talk about stuff that didn't work as well. I think sleep molecules is definitely in the top two, top three things. But one is darkness. And again, we talked about managing light, but your room should be absolutely pitch black or you can't see your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And that means no electronic lights, put black tape on it. Just get rid of light. I have 2 layers of blackout curtains because I live in
So do
Panama
we.
City. So I can't see my hand at night. And it's awesome. I love that. The second big one is temperature. So you really want to be in a cold room. However, and again, I learned this the hard way, a cold room for a lot of people, if you have a fast metabolism or if you have a hot body temperature, it's not enough. Why? Because your body will trap the heat between your body and the mattress, and that can cause you to overheat and toss and turn. So that's why I'm a big fan of the Chili Pad. I know some people love the 8 Sleep or Sleep 8. I haven't used that device, but the Chili Pad's been a staple for me and my wife, and we both love it. And again, if you got a lot of muscle mass, or if you have fast metabolism, or a woman in menopause, and you're getting these body temperature spikes, I think it's critical to manage your body temp. So that's been one of my top recommendations and best investment for sleep is managing body temp. And then the last big one is a really good mattress. I think so. When I looked at what causes people to toss and turn, a mattress is one of the main causes. There's heat and then body pressure. And what happens with body pressure is you will get blood flow constriction, especially if you're a side sleeper, typically in your shoulder. If you're a woman with wide hips, it'll happen in your hips. And you're going to toss and turn, not going to be aware of it, but it's going to pull you out of deep sleep. So that's why I typically recommend, especially for side sleepers, get a really good memory foam mattress. My favorite brand by a long shot is Essentia. They're a Canadian company out of Quebec, and their mattresses are made out of a tree sap. And there's no off-gassing. That's why I picked them. And you can choose the right density for your body. So here's some pro tips on picking a mattress. If you're heavier and shorter, you actually want a softer mattress. If you're taller and lighter, then you can go with a denser mattress. If you're a back sleeper, which is the best position for sleep, because one, you're going to get a light spinal adjustment, and 2, you're spreading out the pressure over a greater surface, you can go with a denser mattress as well. So I think if you're a side sleeper, strongly recommend a memory foam mattress. And I know there's a bunch of mattress companies out there, but I haven't tried them. But I love my Essentia mattress. Definitely strongly recommend that brand.
Love it. Yeah. We have their pillows and we really like them too. So yeah, the body heat thing can so relate because my hubby's always like, I can't fall asleep. It's too warm. And he's like turned the thermostat down so much, and why in the summer it's always harder for him to fall asleep. So I think it's so important for people to understand these things that may seem so minimal that can have a big difference with our falling asleep. So let's talk about the sleep molecules. I'm really curious to hear more about this and its role in good sleep.
Yeah, first of all, let's talk about what I feel is the best strategy to start with always, which is let's try to get our bodies to produce the target molecules instead of taking an exogenous or external form of it. So again, instead of taking melatonin, I think it's always better to try to get our bodies to produce melatonin. It's the same thing with other hormones. And of course, as people get older, it's natural that the natural production of these things decrease over time. So it can be more challenging. And it is a fact that, of course, as people get older, their sleep quality, especially deep sleep, lowers and lowers. So one of the best precursors. And when we say precursors, that means building blocks. So one of the best building blocks for natural melatonin production is magnesium. Of course, you talked about Magnesium Breakthrough. It's our best-selling product, and we've had thousands and thousands of people report getting the best sleep ever on their Oura rings and other sleep tracking devices. So yeah, just that alone is a phenomenal solution to improve sleep. And there's another reason, there's two reasons why magnesium really improves sleep. One is, again, melatonin production, because magnesium is a precursor for serotonin, and serotonin is a building block for melatonin. But the other reason is it directly relaxes the nervous system. And that is one of the most important strategies for great sleep. And you talked about people that, they might be working and then try to go to bed. Well, it might take 2 or 3 hours for their brains to start slowing down and relaxing. So managing your nervous system is such an important thing for health and especially for sleep. And magnesium is phenomenal for that. The best magnesium for sleep, based on the research and the literature, is magnesium bisglycinate. So that's why we picked that for sleep breakthrough. Now, one of the things that we do is when we look at solving a challenge, a biological challenge, or trying to achieve something, we look at what we call the biopathways. So how does the conversion happen from magnesium to serotonin to melatonin? And what are the things that we can add, which are called cofactors, to help transform that molecule into what our goal is, which in this case is melatonin? P5P, which is a bioactive form of vitamin B6, is a phenomenal cofactor for magnesium. So that's one of the other molecules that we've added. Let's talk about sleep minerals. We just talked about magnesium, but there's 3 other ones that are really, really good for sleep. The one that surprised me the most that I was sleeping on, pun intended, and again, credit goes to my co-formulator, Mark Effinger, aka Mr. Newts, is potassium. And I'm a big fan of potassium. I think people are in general deficient on potassium. Their sodium to potassium ratios are way off. But I didn't know the impact of potassium on sleep. And when I looked at the literature, what I found was this literature and this research that they did on mutant flies. And what they found was that sodium excites the brain, it excites neurons, and potassium quiets them down. And potassium also has a heart calming effect. So again, it shifts the nervous system a little bit, and specifically the heart. So in terms of quieting down the brain, relaxing the heart, and also improving hydration, which can help prevent people from waking up and going to the bathroom, potassium is awesome. So that's one of the other minerals we have. The next one is zinc orotate. And zinc is also a really good molecule for the nervous system. It's also a cofactor for melatonin. So again, zinc has a lot of benefits. And then the last one is calcium. So it just happens that our advice from our grandmother was correct. Drinking a glass of warm milk before bed is a good strategy in terms of getting to calcium. Maybe not so much with the fats and the proteins and the other things, but the calcium does improve REM and also helps convert tryptophan into serotonin, which again is a precursor to melatonin. So there's a lot of cofactor magic, and magnesium is a cofactor for all 3 of these minerals. So that alone is a really effective little stack. And then of course, one of the things that we love to do is to stack things, which means we're combining things together to create synergy. And what is synergy means 1 + 1 + 1 = 10. So the next big molecule is GABA. And when you look at the data on people that have insomnia, there's 2 major things that I saw. One is that they're about 30% deficient in GABA. And the second thing is they have hyperactive beta brainwave activity. I'll go back to that one in a second. So for a lot of people that are naturally deficient in GABA, supplementing with GABA will help them be more relaxed. I mean, we call it the molecule of chill, and will typically help them improve sleep. We tested a bunch of GABAs, including valerian root, which a lot of people use, and GABA, and then pharma GABA. We picked pharma GABA. We thought it was the strongest out of the lot. And one of the things we wanted to accomplish with Sleep Breakthrough was we wanted people to wake up and not feel groggy. And what we found with a lot of the GABA molecules was they lingered a little too long. and we felt kind of a little bit of a GABA hangover the next day. So
Mhm.
with pharma GABA, we thought that that was the best molecule for that. But as you mentioned earlier, a lot of people have hyperactive brains. And what that looks like if you put electrodes on your brain is there's an over too much beta brainwave activity. So your the brain's always producing all these different brainwaves, beta, alpha, theta, delta, gamma. But beta, which is really good when you're awake, is again, we're definitely in a beta brainwave state right now. It's phenomenal. But as you're getting closer and closer to bed, you want to try to slow down your brainwaves. Ideally, you're in an alpha brainwave state before your head hits the pillow. There's two molecules that will actually increase alpha brainwaves. One is GABA, which we just talked about. And the other one, which has been my number one sleep molecule for the last 6 or 7 years, is L-theanine. L-theanine is an amino acid derived from green tea, typically. And what it does, it helps relax your brain, but it doesn't cause drowsiness. And a lot of people prefer green tea over coffee for that reason, because again, it helps extend the effects of caffeine. It helps relax the nervous system. So you're kind of getting that alertness, but not getting the jitteriness. But if you take just L-theanine by itself, it's really, really good to help, again, increase alpha brain waves and prepare your brain and your body for sleep. So the combination of the GABA, the pharma GABA, and the L-theanine is a really good stack for increasing alpha brain waves and quieting down the beta brainwave activity a little bit. And just a couple of other pro tips on that. I mean, anything you can do as a mindfulness practice, whether it's you're taking a bath, meditating, journaling, reading spiritual literature, that really, again, slows down your brain. Again, when you're watching TV and you're on your phone, obviously it's kind of stimulating beta brainwave activity, stimulating dopamine. So those are kind of things that ideally you're avoiding, especially that last hour before bed. And then the last one is glycine. So I think that most people are severely deficient in glycine. I think glycine is one of the most important amino acids for health in general, but I'll focus today's conversation on sleep. The first thing it does, it actually lowers body temperature, which is an awesome thing. Because again, we mentioned earlier, if you're too hot, you're going to struggle to sleep. So it does that by pushing blood to the extremities. It also improves REM. And probably my favorite benefit of sleep breakthrough, and I think it's primarily coming from the glycine, and it showed up in the literature, is that when people are getting, let's say, 6 hours of sleep, which we know it's not ideal, but sometimes it's going to happen, the next day, if they use glycine, they felt a lot better than if they didn't use it. So it really has in my opinion, kind of a rejuvenating effect that I noticed, and a lot of people are reporting as they're using sleep breakthrough over a few weeks, they just feel better the next day, and it kind of gives them another gear. So that's pretty much it. I mean, the rest of the formula is just natural flavoring like blue spirulina, some organic berry powders. There's no added sugars. The sweetener is just stevia. And then we added some silica from bamboo, which is another mineral. And we added that for texture as well. So yeah, it's a very clean formula. There's nothing synthetic. Basically,
Mhm.
everything is either a mineral, an amino acid, or an herb. And it's working really well.
Yeah, and as it should be. And is there a specific like dosing that's best to start with the sleep breakthrough?
Yeah, so we recommend starting with 1 scoop, which is about 4 grams. It's a very effective formula, and one of the reasons we went with the powder is that we want people to find the right dose for them. For some people, 2 scoops is too much. I'm a
Mhm.
2 scoop guy, so it depends. Again, start with the 1 scoop, then maybe go to 1.5, and then try 2. Play around with the dosage to find what works for you. So again, we're getting a lot of reports of people either 1 scoop is the right dose. Some people are saying 2. And you want to drink that about 1 hour before your target bedtime. And you'll notice it'll hit your brain after about 30 minutes. And one of my personal favorite aspects of sleep breakthrough, which has always been one of my biggest struggles, is it makes me want to go to bed. I'm a natural night owl. I can stay up till 3, 4 in the morning if I want to, but I don't want to. I want to go to bed at 12 or 1. So yeah, usually at 11, I'll drink it. And by 11:30, 11:40, I'm like, okay, time to go to bed. So I really, really like that benefit.
Love it. Yeah, this product sounds incredible. I'll definitely make sure everyone has access to check it out. So I feel like we've covered so many things. Is there anything that I've missed around sleep, the falling asleep, why I'm sometimes too much sleep is not good? Have we missed anything?
Yeah, just to recap, I would say like high quality sleep is one of these things that will level up the quality of your life,
Mhm.
whether it's you're trying to build muscle mass or an athlete. We didn't talk about the research on dieting because if you're trying to lose body fat, I would say great sleep should be the number one thing you start with. Otherwise, about 50% of the weight you lose is going to be lean muscle mass. And you talked about ghrelin being elevated by about 28% the next day. Your blood sugar, you can look, and I've talked to people that are literally pro athletes. I talked to one recently, and he was telling me some CGM data that CGM is a constant glucose monitor for those of you that don't know. And he was telling me that he had a really bad night of sleep because he was doing some things, and the next day he looked like a diabetic. One night, the next day, he looked like a diabetic. Of course, when your blood sugar is elevated, you're aging faster, your skin deteriorates, and all these different consequences. So, yeah, just great sleep is going to get you in the best mood possible. Your family will appreciate it. Your friends will appreciate it. Your coworkers will appreciate it. You're just going to be a smarter, healthier, sexier version of yourself. So, yeah, I think that sleep is definitely one of the best investments anybody can make.
Couldn't agree more. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I think we covered the fundamentals.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been very informative and very helpful. I hope people will be willing to make their sleep more of a priority, and definitely will have to check out the sleep breakthrough and the magnesium breakthrough. They are very great products that can help assist. And thank you again for being on with me today.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have a special discount code for all your listeners, and it's sleepbreakthrough.com/Amber approved. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes as well.
Yes,
Thanks.
I will make sure all the details are in the show notes. Again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for honestly, the two of you creating this company and the product and being integral. We need it. And I'm excited to, have the listeners listen and try it, and let's improve sleep all over the world. It'll make for a better planet.
Yeah, we're just getting warmed up. I mean, our mission is really to take the world from sick to superhuman, one
Yes.
solution at a time. And I think we have 35 products coming in the next couple of years.
Wow.
So, yeah, a lot of amazing things are coming soon. So, thanks.
You're welcome.